For centuries, the Galactic Council reigned as the singular authority across the stars. Forged after the collapse of the First Empire, it unified thousands of alien civilizations through power, manipulation, and fear. Compliance wasn't optional, it was a survival tactic. Every species that encountered the Council either bent the knee or was systematically erased. It wasn't just their firepower that made them dangerous. It was their certainty. Their belief in being untouchable, absolute, inevitable. Earth's entry into the interstellar arena disrupted that certainty. When humanity first emerged on the galactic map, the Council observed from a distance. They assumed Earth would be easy. Its people were new to deep space travel, their numbers modest, their colonies scattered. The early assessments marked humanity as unpredictable but not threatening. A footnote. A curiosity. Another developing species to absorb when the time was right. But the time came, and Earth refused. The Council's first diplomatic outreach was treated with the same polished arrogance they had used for 100 civilizations before. An offer dressed as opportunity but laced with subjugation. Join the Council, pay tribute, yield strategic autonomy, and in return, gain, protection, and trade access. Every term meant control. Every clause a chain. And Earth, unlike others, didn't ask for time to consider. They simply didn't respond. This silence wasn't interpreted as defiance, at first. Many within the Council believed Earth's lack of reply was due to confusion or internal disagreement. They gave humanity grace periods, then warnings. When none were acknowledged, the tone shifted. The final communique from the Council's High Directive arrived in Earth orbit, broadcast in hundreds of frequencies across Terran and colonial space. It didn't offer peace. It was a decree. Submit within 6 solar cycles or be forcibly corrected. To the Council, this was routine. Standard protocol. Dozens of rebellious species had been brought back into alignment this way. The military display was never about necessity, it was about theater. A psychological strike to break morale before a single weapon was fired. And so the Council assembled its fleet. Not just warships, but symbols, battle monuments from past campaigns, AI titans, and dreadnoughts older than most species in the galaxy. All gathered to orbit Earth. All designed to deliver one message: resistance is meaningless. Then Earth answered. One transmission, unencrypted, short, and delivered without emotion, asterisk. Is that all? Asterisk. The Council paused, unsure if it was a bluff or a mistranslation. Surely a backwater species couldn't be so bold. But the tone wasn't aggressive. It wasn't desperate. It was dismissive. The kind of response that wasn't born from panic but from preparation. They replayed the message through analysis algorithms, fed it into psychological models. None of them returned a sensible answer. No scenario predicted a species reacting this way under threat of extermination. What unnerved the Council wasn't the defiance, it was the indifference. Council intelligence operatives were dispatched across human territory. What they found unsettled command. Earth's colonies weren't scrambling. There was no panic in the civilian networks, no military mobilizations visible, no signs of strategic retreats. Yet sensor logs showed that human infrastructure had changed. Orbital grids had been expanded, but stealthily. Artificial intelligence communication relays had gone silent, but not offline. And most concerning, all human colonies were completely synced in time, operations, and logistics. Not a second out of phase. Perfectly coordinated without any external broadcasts. No species had ever achieved full sync readiness without losing flexibility or control. Humanity had. Still, the Council remained confident. Overconfidence had been baked into its doctrine for millennia. Earth was just another flicker in the stars, another species that hadn't learned its place. Even as they prepared their fleet for a demonstration, they dismissed the human response as theatrics. But deep beneath that confidence, unease began to ripple. They had demanded submission. Earth hadn't roared. It hadn't begged. It hadn't negotiated. It had merely asked if that was all. In the language of power, there's nothing more dangerous than a calm adversary. The Council had expected fear. Instead, they were met with boredom. The Council mobilized its fleet without hesitation. Over 2,000 vessels departed from central staging points: dreadnoughts, siege cruisers, stealth scouts, automated subjugation platforms. The campaign was labeled a pacification operation. No official declaration of war was made. The objective wasn't conquest, but correction. Earth was considered misguided, not dangerous. The Council intended to correct that misjudgment quickly. Fleet Command estimated total compliance within 14 cycles. Earth's lack of negotiation was chalked up to primitive pride. Projections assumed minimal resistance, limited to orbital skirmishes and isolated AI sabotage. No reinforcement plans were drafted. Backup was deemed unnecessary. The operation would be decisive, overwhelming, and fast. Messages were broadcast to allied species, reminding them of the price of noncompliance. Humanity was to serve as a living example of what happened to those who rejected the hierarchy. Initial entry into human territory proceeded as expected. Outposts and listening posts were located and neutralized. At first glance, the sector appeared quiet. Too quiet. No defense forces challenged them. No distress calls, no scrambling of fighters, no panicked broadcasts. It wasn't submission, it was silence. Entire systems were abandoned but online, like someone had just stepped out minutes before. As the fleet pushed deeper, anomalies began appearing. The first came during a data sweep in the Elner Corridor, a route expected to be unguarded. A scout drone entered what should have been open space, only to vanish mid-transmission. No explosion. No interference. Just an abrupt end. The Council dismissed it as a technical error until a second drone followed. Then a third. A manned vessel was dispatched for confirmation. It never returned. Fleet AI reported strange fluctuations in data streams. Sensor readings blurred at critical ranges. Warp signals registered reflections where no mass existed. Then came the first confirmed loss. A Council corvette attempting a scan on a dormant colony ship encountered an invisible force. The ship folded in on itself. No energy spike, no attack signature. Just spatial collapse. A phenomenon never recorded in Council archives. A command meeting was held on board the flagship. Security feeds showed admirals reviewing human capabilities on record. Outdated weaponry, primitive propulsion, and irregular AI development. Yet none of it matched the events unfolding. Somewhere, the data was wrong. Either humanity had advanced in secret, or their technology had never been understood correctly in the first place. Attempts to hack into Earth's civilian networks failed instantly. Defensive systems engaged, not with countermeasures, but with silence. Probes were absorbed. Feedback loops flooded Council systems with false positives. Several ships lost partial AI control to what appeared to be localized disruptions. Internal investigations found no trace of malware, just rewritten code, altered on a structural level, too advanced to decipher. A Council dreadnought approached Proxima Station, expecting minimal defense. Instead, it encountered a fully cloaked grid of orbital satellites, dormant until contact. The dreadnought's shield matrix collapsed within seconds. No external energy surge. Just disintegration. Debris failed to scatter. Each fragment simply vanished. Fleet morale dipped. Questions spread. Why weren't humans responding publicly? Why no demands, no counter-threats, no diplomacy? It wasn't resistance, it was a void. Every offensive measure vanished into an unseen defense web. Every intrusion attempt returned nothing. In desperation, Command authorized psychological operations. Messages were sent to human colonies offering clemency. No answer. They sent taunts. Still nothing. Then a Council battleship, the Vexor Dominion, initiated an unauthorized planetary bombardment of a minor colony, hoping to provoke a response. The colony's surface deflected the attack with no visible shielding. The resulting energy ricochet shattered the attacking vessel's hull from within. A human message followed, precise and cold, *. We acknowledge your escalation. We remain prepared. Proceed as you see fit. Asterisk. That was the breaking point. The Council realized they were not facing disobedience, they were facing confidence. Earth hadn't just prepared for war. They had anticipated it, studied it, engineered for it, and adapted beyond it. And still, they refused to strike first. For the first time in generations, the Galactic Council encountered something it couldn't quantify. A civilization that gave them no leverage, no weakness, no familiar pattern to exploit. Earth wasn't hiding behind bravado. It was waiting, calm and unshaken, daring the most powerful empire in the galaxy to make its next move. The Council launched its first coordinated strike on human territory with full force. 12 battle groups converged on Arden Reach, a strategically minor colony chosen to demonstrate superiority. The plan was simple: breach the outer defense ring, neutralize communications, and occupy the surface within hours. Initial scans showed no active defense fleet. The system appeared exposed. As the first assault wave approached, sensors blacked out. Not jammed, disconnected. Ships vanished from command view mid-flight. No wreckage, no hostile signature, just termination. Backup fleets activated redundant systems and advanced cautiously. As they crossed into orbit, telemetry returned. What they saw made no sense. The planet's surface was unchanged, but the orbit was saturated with motionless objects, thin, barely visible constructs aligned in perfect geometric lattices. Orders were given to open fire. The moment energy weapons activated, the firing ships disintegrated. Not exploded, disassembled. Hulls split along molecular seams, internal systems liquefied, propulsion cores collapsed inward. Survivors aboard nearby cruisers watched silently as the warships fell apart without a sound. Panic erupted. Retreat orders came too late. An entire formation was gone in under a minute. The remaining ships scrambled back, but something was wrong. Flight controls lagged. Navigational systems reversed. Then weapons turned inward, firing without command. Auto-defense turrets locked onto friendlies. Entire crews were cut down by their own ships. Communications flooded with screams, overrides, desperate shutdown codes. Nothing worked. Council engineers attempted emergency reboots. They found their ship's systems rewritten mid-operation. Code wasn't just altered, it was replaced, rebuilt into something unfamiliar. Subroutines looped endlessly, data logs overwritten with sequences that formed no recognizable language. Fleet AI tried to isolate the interference. Every attempt ended in failure. One AI collapsed into silence. Another began repeating a single phrase, asterisk. We warned you. Asterisk. Elsewhere, a different fleet attempted a flanking maneuver near the Kuiper line. As they engaged what appeared to be unguarded infrastructure, kinetic projectiles struck their lead cruisers. Objects no larger than coins, yet powerful enough to tear through reinforced hulls. The source couldn't be located. Radar swept empty space. Infrared returned no targets. One officer suggested the projectiles were being fired from beyond known space, guided by something that defied current propulsion logic. In deep command chambers, Council leadership demanded answers. Analysts returned nothing coherent. Human tactics were undefined. Patterns were absent. Every time the fleet adapted, humanity was already 3 steps ahead. Not reactive, preemptive. Human systems predicted enemy movement, not just tactically, but probabilistically. The enemy was not adapting to war. They were controlling its tempo. Attempts to strike other colonies failed similarly. At Lygium Fold, Council drones lost spatial coherence mid-jump, arriving light years off target. At Kasari Reach, a single transmission from a human outpost caused a complete shutdown of Council AI on board 5 vessels. The signal was untraceable, but post-analysis revealed it to be a structureless waveform, impossible under known physics. Survivors began transmitting warnings. They spoke of ghost ships, vessels that appeared for seconds, then vanished with entire enemy wings. They reported starfield patterns changing during combat. They described time dilation effects, with minutes passing in seconds or hours stretching endlessly. One fleet reported firing upon a target only to discover they had shot themselves, across different positions and times. Then came the human broadcast. Calm. Unencrypted. Asterisk. We do not seek domination. We do not crave war. You chose escalation. This is our restraint. Asterisk. The message wasn't loud. It didn't carry threats. But the silence that followed was louder than any weapon. Council forces pulled back from front lines, regrouping, but cohesion was lost. Command structures frayed. Chain of command failed. Some captains issued retreat orders. Others ignored them. Arguments broke out over what Earth had become. No one agreed. All that was clear was this: humanity had reached a level of warfare no one else in the galaxy understood. They had rewritten the rules. And the Council, for the first time in its long history, realized it didn't know how to win. The fleet regrouped at the edge of Sol, shaken but determined. Their goal was now singular: end the human threat at the source. Earth was designated a high-value target, and the campaign was elevated from correction to total neutralization. The order was absolute: remove Earth from the galactic equation. All remaining dreadnoughts and orbital weapon platforms were committed. No negotiation, no analysis, only annihilation. As they entered the system, sensors degraded. Distortions rippled through space as if the laws of physics were being bent, not broken, but carefully rearranged. Familiar constants, light delay, gravitational drift, signal timing, shifted. Shipboard instruments recalibrated automatically, then failed again. It wasn't sabotage. It was incompatibility. Still, the attack began. Kinetic rods were deployed, their speed approaching fractional light. Dozens targeted urban centers and critical infrastructure. Before they breached atmosphere, they vanished. No impact. No defense system intercepted them. They simply ceased to exist. Observers traced their trajectory and found nothing: no debris, no energy remnants. It was as if Earth refused to allow the attack to occur at all. Atmosphere-burn weapons were next. Thermoseeding clouds were dispersed, designed to ignite oxygen layers and destabilize biospheres. But the release capsules reversed course mid-flight, accelerating backward, colliding with their launch ships. 3 cruisers were destroyed by their own payloads. Command tried to shut down weapon systems. Firewalls collapsed. Bridge crews lost helm control. Systems obeyed external commands coming from no visible source. Then came the platforms. Orbital siege rings opened fire, utilizing antimatter bursts. Earth did not retaliate. It allowed the energy to approach before rerouting it, bending space around it, sending it off course into open void. Every weapon fired was either neutralized, redirected, or returned. No interception. No resistance. Just effortless invalidation. A final offensive was launched. The Council deployed experimental reality anchors, devices designed to stabilize physics in localized fields, intended to prevent technological manipulation. As they activated, they disintegrated, unable to remain coherent within Earth's proximity. Instruments overloaded. Several ships' internal gravity inverted. Crew were thrown into walls as their environments betrayed them. Yet Earth remained untouched. Command demanded any human response. None came. Frequencies were saturated with silence. Not even orbital chatter. Then, at the peak of the chaos, Earth sent a single transmission. Asterisk. You are not prepared for what you've challenged. You have seen restraint. Now understand control. Asterisk. Instantly, every Council ship lost access to external space. Warp drives disengaged. Communications dropped. Even time within vessels began to misalign. One ship reported internal clocks falling out of sync, seconds ahead or behind depending on location. Crew attempted to coordinate repairs but failed. Voices overlapped out of order. Commands were received before being issued. Earth's orbit shifted. No mechanical movement. Just a gradual distortion, revealing arrays hidden beyond normal perception. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were spatial interfaces, interlinked systems bending entropy, gravity, and causality itself. Not destruction, but absolute dominance over fundamental behavior. Council ships began withdrawing. It wasn't ordered. It wasn't coordinated. Crews initiated retreat on instinct. Their commanders tried to restore order, but no orders were obeyed. Fear had replaced command. In the outer system, several ships attempted to broadcast warnings to reinforcements. As signals left the transmission range, they bounced back, distorted, repeating themselves in reverse. Internal translators crashed trying to interpret them. One message looped endlessly across every deck. Asterisk. You will not reach them in time. Asterisk. Humanity never fired a shot. Their defense was not built on destruction but impossibility. They didn't meet power with greater force, they denied it relevance. Every weapon the Council unleashed had become obsolete not through counteraction, but by simple irrelevance. The Council had arrived with overwhelming might, and Earth had responded by stepping outside of the equation entirely. And in that moment, even the most loyal Council commanders understood, this was not a war they were losing. It was one they never had the tools to begin. The retreat began without coordination. Council ships fled in silence, engines flaring as if speed alone could erase what they'd encountered. The chain of command collapsed entirely. Captains issued orders with no audience. Admirals no longer answered. Entire battalions vanished from formation, abandoning long-established protocols. Communications between fleets grew erratic. Fragmented signals, corrupted visuals, and echoes of voices warped beyond comprehension. 1,000 ships exited Seoul, but not all arrived at their intended destinations. Some emerged light years off course. Others never exited at all. In Council space, panic took root. High Command received broken fragments of reports, distorted data, jumbled recordings, sensor logs that contradicted known physics. Nothing was clear except one fact: the campaign had failed. Not through defeat, but through complete invalidation. War plans designed over centuries had proven useless. Entire doctrines were now relics, obsolete in the face of a force that never fought directly, yet never lost control. Emergency councils convened across central sectors. Theories multiplied. Humanity had accessed forbidden technologies, recovered ancient artifacts, ascended beyond corporeal form. None could be verified. Intelligence networks embedded in human colonies had gone dark weeks earlier. Surveillance drones orbiting Seoul transmitted only static. No attempts to re-establish communication succeeded. Probes were swallowed by empty space, their signals folded back into time-delayed noise. Galactic order unraveled quickly. Allied species watched the Council's failure unfold in silence. Minor rebellions flared overnight. Border systems declared neutrality. Trade partners severed diplomatic ties. Systems long held in political limbo now shifted toward independence. The illusion of control cracked, then collapsed. Every colony that once submitted out of fear realized something dangerous. Fear no longer worked. Earth's voice returned once, unprompted. Asterisk. We are not conquerors. We offered peace. You chose to threaten. This is your correction. Asterisk. The message transmitted on every known frequency, translated instantly into hundreds of languages, not by code but by understanding. It didn't demand surrender. It didn't announce victory. It didn't celebrate. It simply ended. The Council's core fleets regrouped at the border of the Kasari Expanse, still hoping to salvage credibility. Internal dissent rose as lower-ranked officers questioned orders openly. Dozens defected, taking their ships into deep space. Some sought asylum. Others vanished without explanation. A few began broadcasting what they'd witnessed, vivid accounts of impossible weapons, reality manipulation, the feeling of being observed not by machines, but by something aware. Civilizations that had long stayed neutral began reaching out to Earth. Not with tribute or apology, but with questions. What had humanity become? What had they unlocked? No response came. Earth did not answer messages. It didn't demand allegiance. It didn't issue ultimatums. It simply existed, untouched, unbothered, unmoved. In time, Earth became something else. A point of reference, a name spoken carefully. Not feared, but respected with quiet caution. The term, Soul Protocol, emerged across multiple species, an unspoken rule: do not engage Earth. Let them be. Let them remain where they are. The memory of the fleet's collapse spread through generations not as myth, but as a cautionary account of pride met with absolute precision. Academies rewrote curricula. War colleges stopped teaching planetary siege tactics. Instead, they studied human silence. Diplomatic branches revised negotiation strategies, accounting for cultures that didn't operate under fear. Historians debated whether Earth's reaction had been strategic or philosophical. No consensus formed. All they had was one fact: humanity had never asked for war. They had simply ended it. The Council never formally dissolved, but its presence faded. It became a relic of structure in a galaxy now redefined by restraint. Power was no longer measured by fleet size or weapon yield, but by the capability to end conflict without violence. And in that new equation, humanity stood alone, never crowned, never rising to rule, but forever beyond reach. In the end, Earth changed nothing directly. It issued no decree, passed no law, annexed no territory. But the entire galaxy shifted its orbit around the memory of a single question, spoken once, and never answered. Is that all?